All right, everybody, we're going to get right into our next guest here. Thank you so much again to Barbara. Next, we have up Saryon Michael White. So let me just go ahead and read a little bit about Saryon and bring him right on. Been working with Saryon now for the last, I think, 4 years, and he's contributed quite a lot of amazing energy. I really love the energy that flows through him. So many different angles. We did a few called Earth Seeds. We did another event called Galactic Integration. We did an Arcturian integration event. So it's just a really wide range of awareness that Saryon's bringing in. And he was actually just a part of our Ancient Sumer conference that we did last month as well, where he brought in a whole new aspect to the whole conversation about the Mesopotamians and the Anunnaki. So a little bit about Saryon. Saryon Michael White is an author, spiritual channel, global messenger of humanity's peace potential. As an international speaker and intuitive consultant, Saryon's workshops, conferences, and private readings have touched the lives of people throughout the world. In the same vein as the books like The Celestine Prophecy, Saryon has taken a truth-telling through fiction to approach to convey a series of highly relevant teachings through his new spiritual adventure series titled The Main Character, Roya Sands. The first book, Roya Sands and the Bridge Between Worlds, is now available. As a spiritual pioneer, Saryon's explorations have led to the extraordinary breakthroughs in the field of out-of-body travel, remote viewing, ET contact, and multidimensional states of consciousness. Through a humble and down-to-earth approach, Saryon delivers teachings and messages of empowerment that brings the invisible into the experiential, making sense of a greater reality. He is the founder and teacher of the School of Manifestation and acts as a channel and spokesperson for the Ascended Masters to deliver the trainings to those intent on embracing the conduit roles in the world. Saryon, welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here, man. It's all yours.
All right. Well, I am so thrilled to be here. This is one of my favorite topics to get into with people, and thank you all for coming and being a part of this. So I want to start by telling a little story. It's one of the funnest, most interesting things that's ever happened to me regarding contact, and then we'll get into the whole presentation, but a lot of it kind of revolves around some of these integrations that people have started to have experiences with. And I also just want to thank Barbara for her presentation before. I found her energy and presentation of these topics just so approachable. Just makes the whole subject very welcoming, approachable, easeful to connect with. And I think that's where we want to be with some of these things. Well, in 2001, I was on one of those expeditions, a CE5 expedition with Dr. Stephen Greer, and we were in Crestone, Colorado. On one of the nights when we were out meditating underneath the stars, I had a really interesting experience. Now, I meditate very well. I've been practicing meditation my whole life. I travel out of body, so I access these altered states of consciousness fairly easily. And in this scenario, when we're activating a contact field and creating a bridge between our consciousness on the earth and the galactic spectrum, then that experience of meditation for me inwardly is very enhanced. I was meditating and I felt the presence of a particular group of beings come in, and it was like light started streaming into my third eye. I went into a deep meditative state. And while I was in that space, I started to have a visual impression inwardly of a group of beings that had bluish type skin, and they were humanoid. They looked almost like Hindu gods and goddesses. They were magnificent beings, very magical, and they started doing something to my consciousness, and out of nowhere, I found myself bilocating on board a ship of theirs that was hovering up above the mountains and looking down on the group. So I found myself in both places at once. I was in my body and I was also on board the ship. And once I became aware of myself on board the ship takes off. I saw it zooming away from the group, going up into the sky, and it began to move faster and faster and faster. And I felt all of this light just lighting up in my nervous system and inside my brain. And the light was interacting with my brain. Some really unusual and different things were happening that I was noticing. Of course, this was all downloading into my body while I was in meditation with the group, I could still hear what was going on around us. I could hear the bugs. I could hear Dr. Greer occasionally speaking. And at some point, I started to have this sensation of just a tiny bit of pain or resistance, some unusual things happening in the brain. And I said, hey, what is happening to my brain, guys? What are you doing to me? And they said, we are preparing your brain for faster than light travel. Mind blown. First of all, let's unpack that one statement for a second. Faster than light travel is possible. I mean, I think we all knew that, those of us that had been, following this subject, but that was a confirmation. I felt the truth of that statement, and it felt as though if I wasn't moving faster than light, I was certainly approaching that crossing point of light, the part of me that was aboard the ship. At a certain point, my energy returned to the body, but I was pondering the fact that they were beginning to prepare certain people for the possibility of faster than light travel. Well, of course, I start to think, well, when might that happen? When are we going to go aboard the ship, or where might we go? We're going to go to another planet somewhere. And of course, thinking in terms of Einstein's relativity, if we go on a faster than light trip somewhere, how long are we going to be gone? We might be out there for a week and come back, and it's, years have passed on the Earth. So lots of unanswered questions, but I'm going to get into some other enthusiastic, fun visions that are connected with where this progression might be taking us. That's the futurist aspect of my work. We'll get into that later. So what is interesting to me about this is that was an experience of light technology, the kind of technology that is being shared with us as a direct consciousness experience. And that comes from an aspect of the galactic spectrum. I've come to understand that we are dealing with a spectrum of civilizations, and it's taken a while before the big picture has really started to open up. But I'm going to share with you a big picture view during this presentation that will help create some context to all of the different things that you're both hearing about and potentially experiencing or might experience over time. The most important thing for me to do for you in this presentation is to pass on the framework that I've been given to help give you discernment about what we're all moving into. And let's see here. Is it possible, Neil, that, oh yeah, there's a share screen. I want to just be able to show a couple of things here. So in this presentation, we're going to be looking at a few things. We're going to talk about the galactic spectrum of consciousness, and we're going to talk about ET worlds and civilizations, some of the experiences that I've had traveling out of body and remote viewing with those, and the spectrum of ET technology in the context of a galactic spectrum of consciousness and what that looks like. And we're going to talk a little bit about our path of integration with a greater community. Back in 2001, when I did this expedition with Dr. Greer, it was actually the beginning of a very profound process. It took a couple of years for the process to begin to activate and unravel, but what I saw was the formation of 3 different planetary councils. Now, these are not councils that are like governmental councils, the way in which a council member is an elected representative. There's no voting. Anyone becomes a part of the council by resonating with the agreements of the council that council holds as a field of group consciousness. So what we're really talking about here is the emergence of non-localized fields of living intelligence and consciousness that become available to the whole of the human race, meaning that there are new codes of consciousness that become available through the emergence of these fields that anyone can adopt and integrate with. Well, I don't know if I could say that one necessarily emerged before the other. It was kind of like they all started to come online together, but there was a group of 3 And what we're talking about here is, pull up my screen again here. We're going to talk about the Global Peace Council, the Council of Planetary Guardianship, and the Galactic Peace Council. The Global Peace Council is made up of a collective of human beings throughout the world that resonate with a new level of accountability regarding the energy and the consciousness of conflict, such that all of us participating within this new group consciousness resonate and align with a very simple agreement and affirmation of let peace begin with me. Let's each take responsibility for the conflict that we project onto the world, or the way in which we filter what is happening in the world, or what we see in the world through a lens of conflict, so that we each are doing our own part to remove conflict from our consciousness, so that we simply become a vehicle of peace and committed to nonviolent forms of conflict resolution. Now, what does this have to do with ETs? It's very important because it is the precursor, in a way, to the widening of another circle, which is the Galactic Peace Council. That's where we're extending those same insights that we are practicing as a civilization to a greater community of intelligent life. Now, sandwiched in between these two is the Council of Planetary Guardianship. Probably a lot of you have heard about the idea that the Earth is a very special center in the galaxy and the local universe that is like a biological library containing representations of biological life from throughout the local universe, meaning that other advanced ETs have brought genetic codes here, or played with the genetic codes in our world to tweak things in such a way that information from other worlds has been able to be transplanted here in a way that creates this world to be, what Barbara Marciniak and the Pleiadians have called a showcase planet. So there's a little bit of the whole local universe here on Earth in the presence of the animals and in our own DNA. When we think about our own galactic heritage being an aspect of that same model, that same principle. Well, what we're looking at here is the possibility that humans and the Earth can become a model of galactic peaceful co-creation. That's a pretty big exploration when we start to look at how we are resolving various forms of conflict and polarity from the surrounding systems here on Earth. But in the context of the Planetary Guardianship Council, what we're looking at is a focus on stewardship, stepping into our roles as stewards of all life on Earth, and putting our stewardship roles first before egoic pursuits, in a way that transcends greed and that also holds the animals as our equals. If you think about our desire to know extraterrestrial life, to get to know the whole galaxy, we don't really need to go further than our own backyard, because there are aspects of galactic life already represented in so many of the animal species here. A lot of the ETs that I experienced from, in the last presentation we talked about the mantis beings. I've had contact with those mantis beings. And yes, the praying mantises that we have here on Earth are in some way a reflection or representation of that form of consciousness galactically. I've met with beings that are elephant-like. I've met with ETs that are lion-like or feline-like, reptilians, avian-type extraterrestrial beings. So if we want to get to know the whole galaxy, we want to start here by forming a more conscious relationship with the animals, because the animals actually contain bridges galactically to other worlds. So instead of reaching out to try to connect with other worlds directly, if we start a little closer to home, there's a whole other kind of experience that begins to open up, where we can feel how the Earth is evolving to fulfill more of her ancient purpose, which includes the way all of these animals are bridges and representations and anchors of that greater community that we can start integrating with into our consciousness here through greater stewardship, and really holding a consciousness that we are not the owners, but the caretakers. So we definitely want to get more in sync with that in our process. When we are prioritizing peace in our consciousness and conflict resolution between each other on the earth, and we are also in this path of integration with the consciousness of the animals and the ancient guardian spirits of the earth, the ancient indigenous cultures, and all those that value the earth and that value all of the life on the earth in a much deeper way. When we are on a path of integration with that, it sets up our alignment with the galactic spectrum of consciousness differently. So we're going to get into another aspect of that, the galactic spectrum. 80% of all ET civilizations are aligned with the principle of non-interference and have varying degrees of angelic integration going on. 20% of ET civilizations are still operating from within the framework of physical reality and or duality and have agendas. Many have a need for physical resources and have agendas regarding their approach to emerging worlds like ours that possess such desired resources. This framework is key. I found it very useful in understanding the spectrum and the crossroads that we are currently at. So on the 80% side of the spectrum, well, first let me just say that this information came to me from the Galactic Peace Council. Well, what is the Galactic Peace Council, first of all? What makes up the Galactic Peace Council? I would say that probably the people that are here presenting to you at this conference are part of the Galactic Peace Council. In fact, maybe all of you listening are as well. Like I said, there's no elected representatives. It really depends on your resonance. The Galactic Peace Council on Earth is a bridge to various similar councils on other worlds, and there are higher councils that are shared between hundreds of worlds that are aligned with a galactic peace agreement. Part of the work of the Galactic Peace Council on Earth is to support humanity's process of integrating with the galactic community so that we can advance into a conscious relationship with the Galactic Peace Agreement. Of course, we have to evolve beyond war to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to really fully embrace the consciousness of the Galactic Peace Council on a larger scale without reaching a certain degree of a planetary peace agreement in our consciousness as a shared value. So that's why these three things go together, the three councils. So we're talking about non-localized fields of intelligence and consciousness. And when it comes to one of these councils, like the Galactic Peace Council, for example, there's what you might think of as a circle that is, I wouldn't say it's the centralized or most centralized aspect of this particular council, but it is an element of how the council is developing. It is a circle of consciousness that those who are the most highly engaged in producing and sharing discernment. It's like a wisdom circle. There are wisdom circles within all of these non-localized fields of intelligence. And those wisdom circles are the places where we are sharing discernment and intelligence and wisdom and producing that and refining it as part of a field that anyone can tap into. And that's part of what we're doing with this conference. These kinds of events align and come together and manifest as a portal so that this kind of awareness can be disseminated from within the circles of wisdom that are connecting with each other multidimensionally. There's kind of like an ongoing conversation that is taking place on the inner planes from the level of our souls and our higher selves regarding these subjects. Well, at one of the inner plane presentations that I experienced, one of the could think of as somebody as a senior member, I suppose, of this council, somebody that had been in this game for a long time, came to me and showed me this vision of the spectrum. So on the 80% side of the spectrum, we have civilizations that are organized around non-interference. Probably the greater part of the 80% might represent civilizations that are not entirely physical in nature. They've either ascended or they might have not ever been quite as dense as our civilization to begin with. Not all worlds and civilizations go through the same degree of experience with evolving through a biological experience of life and an ascension process. Some civilizations are at a higher level of density from the beginning and don't ever become as dense as we are. These are astral worlds. I've actually visited some of these worlds in the outer body state. I've seen whole astral solar systems. These are stars that are not visible and perhaps not even detectable by our instruments. They exist at a higher vibration, and they have full planetary systems and civilizations that are there going through their own evolutionary process, but at a much higher vibration. And it's possible that we are going to reach a point in our own evolution where when we cross a certain threshold of vibration, we may begin to perceive some of these other worlds in our consciousness and remember that they exist. We might remember that there have been other periods in human history when we are aware of the astral worlds and the full spectrum of consciousness, and we were able to be in communion with those worlds from within ourselves. Very interesting levels of experience might open up regarding contact. A lot of people are very interested in the idea of connecting with and contacting different civilizations in a more outer way. I would suggest that there is so much more than most people realize about what's possible in terms of inner experience. The very first series of experiences that I had in a full conscious experience of an ET craft, seeing ETs, communicating with the beings inside the ship psychically while I was having a physical sighting of a craft. I had several experiences of that in my teens. And then very quickly, they said, "We do not intend to continue meeting you in this way. Now that you know we are real, now that you know we are here, we prefer to meet you inwardly and contact you inwardly, or to support you to meet us in the out-of-body state, because humanity and the earth is not ready for our physical presence, and it's not appropriate for us to continue to try to contact you in this way. We came to basically activate you." These were mostly Pleiadians that I experienced in those early days. And so most of the experiences that I had for quite a long time after were all inner experiences. And these were fantastic experiences of integrating with a very wide spectrum of different civilizations. Pretty much all the ones that you've been hearing about, I've touched base with or had some kind of experience of integrating with, and sometimes even having a glimpse of their worlds or their history. All very possible to experience inwardly, which is why I always encourage people to, keep developing your ability to meditate and to look within yourself and to receive information into the body, because the body is the mirror of the cosmos. Everything that we need to know about the whole galaxy and all these civilizations is actually already inside our DNA. And we can discover our own innate, inborn ability to look within. The great danger is that there's so much distraction taking place that people might become so dependent upon sources of information outwardly that we might miss our ability to experience the body in a deeply more conscious way. Okay, so in terms of the spectrum, I talk a lot about angelic integration, how the most highly advanced civilizations like the Arcturians are ones that have become integrated with their angelic counterparts. As you get closer to the crossover between the 20% and the 80%, there's a point in there where, just over onto the 80% side, you might find civilizations that are at higher density, but they are a little bit closer to understanding our experience. They've evolved through density themselves. They have great compassion for what we are going through. And some of them, like the Arcturians, are very much models. We'll talk a little bit more about specifically what they are modeling for us a little bit later. But when you go over to the 20% side, you have this other range. It's a whole other spectrum unto itself, where you have civilizations that are still evolving through physicality to varying degrees. Now, there's also a range of densities. These are all densities that still exist inside a framework of duality or polarity in consciousness to some degree. But these are civilizations that to one degree or another may have agendas. They're not completely free of agendas that are oriented toward their own needs and interests in their relationship to us. And we have to be very wary of that. As you get closer to the crossover point, you might even have civilizations that are at a slightly higher density. They may even be somewhat integrated with a love vibration, and they may have very altruistic motives in contacting us, but they still may have some control issues or some attachment to the outcome, or they may want to influence us in ways that are jumping the gun a bit and not giving us full and complete autonomy to evolve into what we are meant to become naturally. There are some groups that have altruistic motives, but they also feel like they're operating somewhat in competition with other groups that have more self-serving interests. And so it creates a little bit of confusion. There are some civilizations that would love to step in and intervene, and it's very difficult for them to restrain themselves and to allow things to unfold. But when you reach that crossing point, which is what we are in the process of doing, hopefully, potentially, where we can really choose which part of the spectrum we are going to align with. Are we going to align with the part of the spectrum that is somewhat trapped in a relationship with technology that hijacks our natural potential to evolve our consciousness and to raise our vibrations? Or are we going to align with the part of the spectrum that is more oriented toward conscious evolution in a way that begins to limit the role of physical technology and prioritize what we can achieve through running natural currents of consciousness and light and love vibration through our bodies? One of the ways that I would characterize the contrast between these parts of the spectrum is interesting, because we all know about AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence, and we are being shown this path of integration with AI, where we could become more and more integrated with AI, becoming more and more integrated with AI in our consciousness even. What is not being talked about is our potential for another form of AI, which is angelic integration. So that kind of characterizes the two different aspects of the spectrum. There's artificial intelligence on one side, there's angelic integration on the other, what we prioritize in our consciousness as a civilization, between these two things, to a certain degree, characterizes our alignment with the spectrum and with the types of civilizations that we're going to be having the most engagement with. Right now, we're having engagement with all of it. It's creating this grand dilemma. It's creating a challenge because there are agendas, there are enormous potentials, there are huge spiritual benefits to contact. At the same time, there are also things going on where human beings are very undiscerning about some of the ideas being promoted and pushed on us in ways that we don't even realize. This is something I've witnessed for a long time, that there are certain ideas being seeded into human consciousness by some ET groups about becoming integrated with immersive technology that are like seeds being planted psychically. And when I've looked at it from an angel's eye view, I can actually see what looks like almost like a dark web that is focused on promoting these kinds of ideas as a bridge into a very specific kind of civilization where human beings gradually experience the erosion of our freedom and sovereignty. And the resources of our world are falling into the management of various off-world organizations. It's of great concern, really, that we are at this point where we're facing such a dilemma. And what's really interesting about this is that all these different contexts, all these experiences, all of these possibilities, it was designed to make us think, to make us start to ask questions, to look at the different evolutionary pressures that are there, and to turn within and to look within for the answers. And when you really turn within, there are several things that happen. We start to discover that we actually embody galactic DNA that puts all of these different civilizations in their proper place and shows us the big picture and shows us the grand design and shows us who we were designed to be as beings that could balance the field of all of these civilizations into a new degree of wholeness through a new kind of human experience. Now, I'm a very big advocate of angels first. Let's really integrate with the angelic presence, because really we're only interested, if you follow what I've been teaching that comes from some of the most advanced civilizations like the Arcturians, we should only really be interested in integrating with the civilizations that are aligned with the angelic integrated part of the spectrum, the 80% side. That's what we want. We want to be aligned with that. We don't want the interference going on within the other unwanted energies that don't really even fully get what our true potential is. We want to also have a degree of discernment that supports us to vet the context that we're having and the quality of the information and the awareness and the frequencies of these different beings. If we have different energies coming to us, wanting to have contact with us, or wanting to have dialogue with us, wanting to form a relationship with us, what part of the spectrum are they coming from? What kind of agendas might be there? Well, in my experience, the angelic presence and my connection with the most angelically integrated ETs in that part of the spectrum have given me discernment that allows me to vet the quality of the information and the presence of those showing up. Interesting story, kind of a side note, but when I first fully stepped into the relationship with the Council of Planetary Guardianship and the Global Peace Council and the Galactic Peace Council, these are like three interlocking rings of consciousness that became activated within my heart. And I was holding a position of a guardian or a counselor within that level of the field. This is a field of wholeness. And as I was holding that, there was a particular ET group that came to me, and they asked permission if they could land. And they were interested in taking some samples. They were interested in exploring here, exploring the resources of our planet. And what was very interesting about this interaction is that on the one hand, this was a civilization. I don't know who they were, but it was a civilization that was coming from the 20% side of the spectrum. But they also were respectful enough that they were intent on obeying certain rules of engagement instead of trying to get around them, and to respect the sovereignty of an emerging world like ours. And so instead of just trying to sneak in and get what they wanted, they were behaving in accordance with galactic law. They were asking permission from someone that they could see was a true steward and guardian and gatekeeper of this world. Not that I was, by any means the only one, but I was available. And so they were asking me for permission. And I took that request into my alignment with the non-local fields of intelligence, that is the Galactic Peace Council, the Council of Planetary Guardianship, the Global Peace Council, and of course, Mother Earth and all the animals of the earth. And I listened for guidance because I'm representing the collective here, and the collective of all the animals in the earth and the Galactic Peace Council did not agree and said, no, we are not willing or ready at this time to receive you coming and physically visiting this reality. And so they didn't. They backed off. They respected our request. Now, there are those that are utilizing humanity's denial of the extraterrestrial presence to find backdoors in to do what they want. There are also, many positive beings that contact us and are interested in supporting the evolution of consciousness in ways that are aligned with our angelic blueprint and our ancient purpose. And what they are bringing and the frequency they're bringing is compatible. And there's all kinds of interactions that we're having with ETs that are approaching us through the right channels. So trying to kind of lay out a different framework here, because when you have this framework in your consciousness, then your discernment about all of these things starts to fall into place. It starts to increase. You start to tap into these various non-local fields of intelligence and to look to them for guidance. We all have the ability to connect with non-local fields of intelligence through our inner senses, to receive guidance, to receive discernment. And when we're plugged in to the various councils, then as we experience contact, or as we have the opportunity to experience various levels or forms of engagement that are offered to us, we can check in with the councils and see, what is this? How should I relate to this? Is this aligned? How do I process this experience I just had in relationship to the spectrum and our purpose, and what wants to be processed, and what supports our evolution as we go deeper into this experience. So I want to talk a little bit about ET civilizations. Probably the best examples that I can give from my own experiences of journeying to some of these other worlds through the Akashic records and through a kind of a non-localized experience of remote viewing into various worlds can be presented through a very simple contrast of these two different experiences of what I was shown between the evolution on the Arcturian homeworlds and the awakening of another world that humanity will eventually be working with thousands of years in the future. So I was shown that along the timeline of humanity's ascension, and through all the evolutions that we may go through to first, transcend some of the challenges of the century, to get on a path of ascension and raising our vibration, and eventually evolving to become beings of pure love and light, to form vehicles of light, of collective light body, a multidimensional ship that can then travel to the stars. Eventually, we will leave the Earth behind thousands of years from now, and we will be like a race, like the Arcturians, and we will go forth and have the opportunity to serve the awakening of other worlds. Well, I was shown humanity's first galactic mission thousands of years from now, and we received what I would describe as a call to go and assist another emerging world. We were all traveling as joyful beings, and I could see this. We were traveling faster than light. We were on the journey for quite some time before we reached this other world that was calling us. And I could feel how the whole human race was there. We were all joyful beings, laughing, telling stories, sharing. There was so much joy over having transcended physicality together. And eventually we came to this other system of worlds, and we saw a world that looked similar to the way our world is now at the 21st century. We saw a world where there was a humanoid species that was going through the challenges of resource depletion. It was a slightly patriarchal system that was beginning to evolve out of patriarchy. It was struggling with overpopulation. They were struggling to maintain clean water on a planetary scale. There are all sorts of problems that this world was having that were so similar to the problems that we are having now. And as we came into contact with that world, our ship, our collective light body, positioned itself in the rings of one of the outer gas giants, just like the Arcturians are doing in the rings of Saturn, which is something they've shown me. I've experienced many contacts with the Arcturians from the rings of Saturn, where some of those their ships are stationed, and beyond that. So we began to feel this immense compassion for these beings. But instead of just swooping in and contacting them and revealing ourselves, we began to do something that I understood was very similar to what the Arcturians are doing with us now. We began to introduce certain currents of thought and energy designed to accentuate the highest and best ideals and principles of oneness and harmony that were already emerging naturally within that species. But it's kind of like taking a look at a species and the full range of their thought and their spectrum of consciousness, and looking at the best of them and the best of who they are and the best of who they have the potential to be, and then shining a light on it. Not trying to teach them our ways or who we are or that they should be like us, but to just shine a light on the best of who they have the potential to be, as we could see that potential, that divine potential inside them. That's a lot of what the Arcturians are doing with us now. The Arcturians, on their worlds, they had two different worlds, two different sister planets that both awakened. One awakened before the other, and they went through an awakening process that was very much universal in terms of how it occurred, as it occurs on so many other worlds in a way that is similar, in that they awakened into an ascension code of consciousness, which is the 1-1 vibration, the vibration of perfect equality of being. Perfect equality of being erases the whole game of superiority and inferiority, and it extends that equality of being to the consciousness of the animals of that planet. And the Arcturians entered a 1-1 vibration with the planet herself. A 1-1 vibration allows any two beings or two systems of reality to equalize and enter into a shared vibration of wholeness. So wholeness and the 1-1 vibration are interrelated. That's what we're doing now. We're beginning to hold a 1-1 vibration with each other. And once we have established that field of consciousness, it allows all sorts of higher forms of intelligence to direct the way that we use our flow of attention to accelerate and excite and energize the unification of consciousness. Well, the Arcturians on their worlds, once one world entered into the 1-1 vibration, they extended it to the other world, and that world awakened into the 1-1 vibration. And the two entered into this ascension dance together until both were able to join as one collective light body of wholeness. And then they realized their potential because they saw that process. They realized that they could do the same thing with other worlds. If one of their worlds could share the 1-1 vibration and code of consciousness with another of their worlds to awaken it, they saw that, okay, this is how this works. We could do that same thing with another world in the way in which we did that between our own worlds. So they got practice to fulfill a very specific kind of mission. So some of these other worlds that exist in our local universe and in the galaxy are not necessarily inhabited by extraterrestrial civilizations, but are places where biological life exists and is being studied and being stewarded because of how those evolutionary patterns may produce new codes of consciousness in the future. So I said that we were on this path of eventually doing faster than light travel, and that we're being prepared for that. Our brains are being prepared for it. Well, interestingly, I said I was going to come back to this point. I was shown the possibility of trips being taken off planet with ET groups that would involve faster than light travel. And there would be groups of us going on some of these trips. This was decades in the future from where we are now. In my mind, we actually have quite a ways to go before those types of things start happening. But the preparation for it is already underway in very interesting ways. When I had the experience of being prepared for faster than light travel on that expedition with Dr. Greer, something interesting happened after that expedition. A lot of people that come on those expeditions, whether it's with him or others, are not going to be ready for the same level of contact experience. Some of us might be ready to go aboard the ships. I'm always having contact with, and conversations with different ET groups. It's like, hey, can I come aboard yet? I'd really love to, come take a trip with you guys. But not everybody's ready for that. But there have been these interesting trainings that have been going on that I started participating in soon after that, where because of my interest level, I got invited into some trainings that were happening on the inner plane, where those of us from these various contact groups and CE5 groups that were ready were able to get together and be together on the inner plane and to go through the contact protocols to vector in an ET ship that would come and land, and we would go on board the ship and talk with the beings inside in the out-of-body state in a way that felt very physically real. It felt like we were there in our bodies, but it was a different vibration of reality. So we could sort of run these scenarios in preparation for when it will one day happen physically. Well, on one of those occasions, a ship came and landed. There were humanoid beings inside. They invited us in. I had a very interesting conversation with one of the beings about the engineering of the ship, because I was asking, how do you go faster than light? How does that really work? How does your drive system work? There's a part of that conversation that actually ended up inspiring part of the conversations in my book, Roya Sands and the Bridge Between Worlds. There's a conversation that happens with a scientist that comes directly out of that contact experience, where this ET was explaining that their drive system is based upon the understanding that there are non-inertia intervals happening all the time, everywhere in the universe, that inertia is not an effect that is happening continuously. It appears continuous to our observation in physical reality, but actually the parameters that create the effect of inertia are always fluctuating. There's fluctuation taking place, and as a result, it is possible to sync up a drive system with the non-inertia intervals, where inertia drops down to zero. It zeroes out, or it gets closer to zero, and it's like the ship is skipping through the non-inertia intervals, going around the inertia intervals. And they're able to do this, perhaps with some way of calibrating the movement or the pulsing of the drive system through sound or through rhythm. They explained that there was an element to their drive system that they referred to as a pulse drive, and the pulses were able to be synced with these non-inertia intervals. So I thought that was fascinating. One thing that I do know is that we have already discovered the means technologically to use advanced propulsion systems that would allow us to very easily explore the solar system, perhaps the local galaxy, very, very closely to home, not so far away, because I don't think the drive systems are that advanced yet, but we have drive systems that are capable of going very fast. I don't know if it's faster than light, but we have not been able to utilize the capabilities of everything that has been discovered in secret because of the secrecy, because of the lack of integration in the consciousness of the people who have possession of these technologies. I've actually witnessed groups of scientists from an angel's eye view attempting to leave the Earth and explore using these advanced drive systems in some of the ships that they've built, and they've been turned back. We have been effectively quarantined because the galactic community is not going to tolerate human beings going to space with a militaristic consciousness, or a consciousness that lacks integration with peace, that's not integrated with the consciousness of the three councils that I described. And so there's a no pass, a ring pass not, if you will, a technological barrier and a physical barrier even, that has prevented us from expanding into space because of the secrecy and because of the way in which the people possessing these technologies holds agendas that just plain and simple don't jive with the galactic community. So it won't be until the secrecy comes to an end that we are able to use the technologies that we already have to begin exploring. Now, I was shown a path where the exploration would be able to take place. Secrecy comes to an end, the technology comes out, we discover that the Earth has all kinds of different rare resources, rare metals and rare elements that have been disguised or hidden because they have been kind of protected and stored and saved up for the humanity of a new age. The reason why we have not been able to discover these resources, which can and will be used to create a whole new technological age and a whole new space age, is because we have not had the consciousness to resonate with the shared purpose of being that these resources were earmarked for. So the Earth has many secrets, and we're not going to be able to become aware of those secrets until we start to get into a framework of peaceful co-creation as a species, and to step into our stewardship roles, where we're not pursuing greed in a larger way in the universe, and instead we are prioritizing the health and well-being of the human family over the ways in which corporations currently see the Earth's resources as commodities. So many things are going to be revealed by the Earth when we start to get in the right framework of consciousness. In this new space age, once the technologies are released, and there's a whole new kind of integration process taking place with a shared purpose of being, I was shown that there would eventually be trips that human beings would be able to take to other planetary systems using our own ships built right here on Earth, using more advanced technology, using resources from the Earth. And we might perhaps have chaperones, extraterrestrial guides and chaperones going along with us to support some of these early missions. And I saw one of them. I saw a group of human beings on a ship. Who knows how many decades in the future this might be. But I saw them traveling at a very high speed. I don't know if it was faster than light. It could have been, somewhere close. It's really hard to tell in a vision like this, but it was an extremely fast ship, and it was going on a mission to a world that we were informed of and given coordinates of that had various forms of biological life, not unlike what exists here on Earth. There was the equivalent of mammalian life. There was the equivalent of bird avian life, and there was the equivalent of reptilian life on this other world that we were being supported to go and make scientific observations of, and to bring that information back to the Earth. And this was a world that didn't have an extraterrestrial civilization physically living on it, but it was being stewarded by an advanced race that was watching over it, watching over the development of life on such a world. So there's some really interesting things that are in store for us when we, get our shit together. I feel very hopeful about where it's all going, but I want to come to something else that I think is very important to consider in all of this. When we're considering the possibilities of the spectrum, we're also looking at a spectrum of technology. So there's a spectrum of light technology. There's a spectrum of technology that we're being supported to develop technology that can be used for peaceful purposes, that is not connected with an extraterrestrial agenda. Even if some of the technology may have been acquired from the study of ET technology. There are some forms of this new technology that may be benign in the sense of being connected to an extraterrestrial agenda, regardless of where the technology comes from. There are technologies that do have an agenda attached to it. And the one that concerns me the most is a technology that is already here. I've been shown that it's here. I've been shown that it is in development. There are technology companies working with it. The precursor technologies are being rolled out. There's a multi-decade process that stretches all through this whole century, at least in the way that it's been planned, to begin to develop a culture that becomes married to immersive technology that is extraterrestrial in origin. So what we're seeing with augmented reality, virtual reality, the creation of the metaverse, that is just a stepping stone. The real danger is this form of technology that is much more deeply immersive, that completely hijacks the human nervous system and brain and mind completely in a way that destroys natural abilities and creates addiction to a new kind of holographic, immersive inner experience of virtual worlds that will be used to trap us. This technique and this technology has been used to trap other worlds, to get other worlds to be tricked into wanting and desiring these kinds of technological enhancements as if that's what's going to free consciousness. And some civilizations have become willing to trade away all of their most valuable resources in exchange for these kinds of technological enhancements, which are a complete dead end. It deadens our spirituality, it dead ends our evolutionary potential, and leaves us trapped in an AI augmented virtual world where we no longer have any self-determination, any vision of who we once were or who we had the potential to be. I've seen whole worlds go down that pathway from the stage that we are currently at, where human beings are or the beings of a particular world are becoming very dependent upon and very addicted to electronics and various forms of immersive virtual technology and virtual reality, all the way to the stage of completely losing freedom, self-determination, and being willing to work for technological enhancements to our virtual world in a way that no longer values the planet itself that we are a part of. I've seen worlds completely become lost in that process through the Akashic records. And there are warnings that are present in the world today about exactly that type of thing happening. I want to share with you a quote. Some of you may be familiar with this because of the book that I wrote, because it's a quote from my book. And I'm going to click over and read this to you. Let's see here. Here we go. We have great concern about the crossroads that you have now reached as a civilization. The breakthroughs you can potentially make in consciousness can guide the evolution of technology and define its role. But you must be very careful not to make technology so important that it defines the evolution of the human brain. Other worlds have gone down that path and have lost a great deal of their creative and spiritual potential. Many influential minds want to trap humanity in an addictive relationship with technology so they can manipulate and control that version of reality. You must be very careful at this stage. While technology may be helping you become more networked in ways that support the global awakening, dependency on electronics also inhibits your view of what your brains and minds are really capable of through natural conscious evolution. And that's from Roya Sands and The Bridge Between Worlds. So I would really love to support all of you to keep engaging in a deeper exploration of emerging discernment regarding all of these different potentials. There are very exciting potentials, and there are frequencies of guidance and support and teachings from the galaxy coming forth that are so profound. And at the same time, there are influences that have been with us for a long time that are well underway, that are going to be pushing through a kind of a marriage of agendas with market forces, this idea of us becoming integrated with immersive technology. So the way that I frame this in my writings and in the fiction books that I am writing and publishing is that there are two different bridges. There is an ancient bridge that is part of the human chakra system naturally, that connects us with the natural world, with the hidden realities of the natural world, the realms of the nature spirits, the realms of the animal spirits, the families of consciousness on the earth that are very ancient and that also hold guardianship consciousness, like the dolphins and whales. Our bridge of connection with the angelic realms. When we become married to our immersion in the Gaia resonance field and the consciousness of Earth's ancient guardian spirits, then we are on a path of integration that is aligned with the path of ascension. If we cross the bridge of becoming married to immersive technology that begins to immerse us into a virtual world that offers us seemingly this beautiful opportunity to enhance our connection with each other remotely through this electronic world, we will miss the natural potential of the human brain to enter into a process of accelerated brain evolution naturally. The onset of collective brain evolution is upon us. We are reaching a point where our brains can begin to evolve as one through non-local fields of intelligence that are based in a love vibration. Immersive technology could take us away from that. We have to be very, very careful. And I'm somebody who's grown up with technology. I'm on the treadmill of integrating with technology all the time for business, but I also practice going technology free. I practice spending time connecting very deeply to the earth, meditating, linking hearts and minds with people in a natural way, channeling love and light and healing, awareness and energy for people and with people, connecting with the spirits of the Earth's ancient guardians, and opening to contact with the part of the spectrum that is integrated with the values of Earth's ancient guardians, many of which were also in contact with the more advanced parts of the spectrum. So that is my presentation, guys. I'm going to end with a quote, and I'll take some questions. And the quote is something that dawned on me when I was receiving a very profound contact with the Pleiadians about the nature of human secrecy of the extraterrestrial consciousness and existence. And this quote, I know my editor would probably say that this is grammatically is maybe not the best, but I'm presenting the quote in the way in which it originally appeared in my consciousness. A secret can only be kept from those who are in denial of its truth. So when you think about it, you have this whole organization of secrecy around the extraterrestrial presence, and that organization is a thought form. Well, what is that thought form? Why is it able to exist? Why are we able to keep secrets from each other? Why are we able to lie to each other? As I came to understand, the reason why the secret can be kept and why it has been kept for so long is because the secret is a reflection of an ancient pattern of denial. Our trust in the greater reality was shaken at various points. There's an ancient aspect of human consciousness that has been afraid of its connection to a greater reality, because connecting with that greater reality goes along with reconnecting with a unified field of being, which gives us access to tremendous power in our consciousness. And that sacred power has the ability to amplify thought. And if we don't trust ourselves to think and create in ways that are harmonious with each other and with the world, then there's this aspect of consciousness that has taken the approach of denial, just not wanting to know and be in touch with that sacred, awesome power that we have embodied in our channels and our chakras in other times, like in Atlantis. So a secret can only be kept from those who are in denial of its truth. What that means is that if we are in a state of oneness with all life, with all light, with all consciousness, in a state of oneness, there are no secrets. Secrets cannot be kept from your inner senses. You can always perceive if someone is lying and what they're lying about. And the lie usually reveals the truth. That's what we are really like when we are free of fear and free of denial. I'm not saying that I'm 100% there yet, but I'm on the path of integrating oneness. And in that journey, on that path of integration, I discovered that how I was able to become conscious of what is behind the wall of secrecy, what allowed me to really look with great discernment and great clarity about what is being hidden from all of us. That was not a journey of breaking down any outer walls. It was a journey inward. It was a journey to go inward and address where some part of me was agreeing with the denial pattern because of my own secrets, because of things that I was afraid to have revealed. So
thank you. That's great. No, I appreciate that as a closing word. I think we all do, because when you say the lies reveal the truth, that's what we're dealing with. You know, that's really what we're.
Yes. And I realize I wasn't keeping track of time. I probably don't have time for questions, but
no, we don't, because Adam is coming on. So, but
yeah,
I have one question though. We have 2 more minutes, so let's just do this question real quick.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people. There are those that say that technology, is taking us down the wrong path, and it's basically a detriment to our evolution. And then there's those that say that, well, it's just the level of consciousness that we need to be at. We're just not at the level of consciousness to use it consciously. So what's your take on those two different thoughts?
Well, I think as a civilization, we were meant to face all of these kinds of dilemmas and to experience the moral dilemmas and all of these considerations as a part of our evolutionary process. So I think that there's a way of looking at the technologies that are becoming available and not fearing them, not being overly invested in them, but continuing to evolve our discernment in relationship to all of it, and just not being naive about the impacts that it could have on our collective future. So I'm not trying to promote fear of any of it, but let's keep the earth at the center of our consciousness in all of this. Let's keep checking in with the non-local fields of intelligence that are emerging, and let that be our guide as we explore all of these different technologies and eventually transcend them to become a race of beings of light.
Incredible answer, brother. Couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, bro. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here and all the energy that you always bring. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Many blessings.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for delving into the truth to bring us closer to who we really are. I think that's the purpose. That is the truth. So thanks. Thanks, Neil. That was, I think everyone...